now. You can go ahead, get started.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for joining the event today. Just to present myself, my name is Moniza Felsen. I'm one of the admissions officers here in the school. And I know you guys are all excited for today's event. And so I don't want to take much of your time, but before we start, I just want to give a little introduction about us and who we are, talk a little bit about who we are. Sometimes many of you who are here today are interested in studying data science. Some of you are already studying data science. So let's talk a little bit about us. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys will see my screen soon. Let me see here on the presenting. Ooh, let's change. Can I make it? Can everybody see my screen? Yes?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about NYC Data Science Academy, right? So we are a school that is proud to provide accelerated training to all students looking to do a career transition as a data scientist, as data analyst. We offer our data science bootcamp and other data science courses, teaching students with R and Python. We are the only bootcamp teaching actually both Python and R. That's one of the things that make us special. And another thing that we're very known for is the hands-on learning. So all the bootcamp students work into like projects, and we provide students a lot of opportunities to work with relevant, projects for the industry. All the bootcamp students work with a total of 4 projects: a web scraping project, an R Shiny project, a machine learning project, and a capstone project, which is very exciting. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about, the projects, feel free to reach out to admissions. We love to discuss about the projects. You can also learn a little bit more on our blog about the students' projects. Job placement, very popular. This is one of the perks of becoming a bootcamp student. So we actually help all our students to be placed in the industry. We have a career service team, and we'll assist you with your resume, connecting you with potential hiring partners, and make sure that, once you graduate, you will go for the job hunting phase and get your job is in the data science industry. Well, we've had helped over 2,000 alumni, and we keep growing every cohort a little bit more. And then not to say we've been rated the best data science bootcamp, best online data science bootcamp as well in 2020 by switchup.org. And here's just a quick reminders, because if you're here and you're interested in studying data science, this is actually our next upcoming dates. So we have our remote live bootcamp, which provide live sessions, live instruction. And that one starts May 3rd. We're still receiving applications. We highly recommend students to apply as early as possible. All accepted students must complete pre-work. So it's important to give a little bit of time for you to prepare with pre-work. And then if you have a full-time job, or if you are looking for something that is a little bit more flexible, we have also our full-time online and our part-time online bootcamp. And those are with pre-recorded lessons. And we have a session starting April 6th for both part-time and full-time online. And the next one would be May the 17th. Both, like I said, those 2 options, they are a little bit more flexible. You have pre-recorded lessons and one-on-one mentorship with data science mentors. I would be super happy to go into more details and all of these versions of the bootcamp offered to all the students. Feel free at the end of the event today, feel free to email admissions. This is our contact information. Then we can perhaps book a call and continue the conversation from there. If you have questions also, I'll be here in the chat. Just send your questions to me. And I hope you guys join the event today. Thank you, Vivian.
Awesome, thank you, Melissa. It's my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Martin. And Martin is currently working at Salesforce as SVP Strategy of Marketing Cloud. Previously, he was holding position at Gartner as Research VP, Fallon as Director of Analytics, and Digitus as a VP and Director of Strategy and Analysis. We are very lucky to have senior level of student like Martin himself. So Please, it's your stage, Martin.
Thank you very much. So as was mentioned, I'm Marty Kine, and I am a employee of Salesforce. I'm also a proud member of the online part-time bootcamp. And hopefully you can hear me and see my screen. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I can see it well.
So okay. I can say that the boot camp has been well worth the time. It's a lot of work, but I got a lot out of it. And I was working full time as well, so you can imagine trying to master the intricacies of machine learning as well as hold down a job is not easy. But today what I'm going to present is the result of my capstone project. I did something that's slightly unusual, at least my mentor told me, which was text analytics and text analysis, but still something that is of great interest to me, and I'm building on my web scraping project where I scraped a lot of movie plots. So I did I began this analysis then. And I have a real interest in a particular genre of movie, which is the Hallmark holiday movie. Some of you may know these. They are shown throughout the year, but a lot of them obviously around the holiday time. Almost all of them are about Christmas, although there are a couple about Hanukkah. But what I wanted to do, my goal here was to apply NLP, natural language processing methods, to summaries of these holiday films that I had scraped from the web. And I wanted to go back in time from the beginning of this genre. And I chose this because other than typical NLP projects where you're looking at bags of words or documents, these summaries had a kind of a structure. So I intuitively felt, because I'd watched a lot of these movies, that there was a formula, that they had a flow to them. And I wanted to see, my secret desire here was to see if I could tease out, using NLP methods and just basic text analytics, what that formula was. The audience would be writers, someone who wants to write one of these and wants to do it right, or a programmer who's coming up with a slate of holiday films, or someone who's writing even a different genre of film who wants to see what makes a successful film. These are very popular. The other thing is, at the end, for extra credit, although I will say I was dissuaded from doing this by my instructor, but I wanted to try some natural language generation. So I wanted to see if I toyed around with the idea of trying to get the machine to write a movie, or at least a summary. We'll see how that went. So this is an example of the data. There were 260 titles, believe it or not, over 25 years. And the summaries are quite short. These are my two favorite stars. On the left would be Candace Cameron Bure, and on the right is Lacey Chabert. Candace Cameron is the biggest star on Hallmark, as you may know. And these are an example of two classic holiday films. And these are the summaries, literally the text. Christmas Town, Lauren Gabriel leaves everything behind to embark on a new chapter in her life, but an unforeseen detour. She has to go to Grandin Falls, a charming small town, and discovers love and family and the magic of Christmas. That's a very typical example of this type of story. And then The Heart of the Holidays, it's a similar beginning. So Lacey Chabert, or the star, after their life in New York unexpectedly falls apart. This high-powered, career woman returns to a small town for the holidays and reconnects with her high school sweetheart. So remember that phrase, high school sweetheart. But those are the examples of the text I was dealing with. They're not long. They're also structured differently, the summary. So there were some challenges in terms of analysis. So the number of new titles, I started with just looking at number of new titles that appeared. You can see it exploded around 2015. And in recent years, there have been about 39 or 40 new movies. These are 2-hour films that were released each season. In the beginning, it was a much lower number. I also noticed, just scanning the plots, that early on in the 90s and the 2000s, there were different kinds of stories. In fact, the character of Santa Claus himself appeared early on, quite frequently. So I did an analysis here on the right. You can see of the incidence of certain words in the summaries. And it didn't show as trenchantly as I had hoped, that trend I mentioned. But it is certainly true that business type plots, and by business I mean things with corporations or businesses in it, did get more prevalent as the years went on. And Santa himself disappeared as a character. So this is a word cloud on the top, and I'll get at kind of my pre-processing here, my feature engineering. So the top was untreated. So I looked at it. I mean, I did treat it to the sense that I took out stop words and did the general pre-processing you do with text and made it all lowercase, as you can tell. And you can see, the common words are what you'd expect, Christmas and holiday and Santa. I realized that if I was gonna realize my dream here of looking at the story or the plot underneath the corpus, I was gonna have to do some finagling. And what I mean by that is a lot of the actual names appeared in the summaries. And I don't care about someone's name if I'm looking at it as a plot. All I care is if they were, the male lead, the woman, so man or woman. So I switched the names to those generic words, or hometown. I didn't care the name of the hometown. I just cared that it was a hometown or a small town. And so I did stuff like that, basically dictionary lookups and substitutions. I was aided, by the way, in that process through a package or a library called Scrapey, not Scrapey, Spacey. Scrapey is the web scraping one. Spacey is pretty good because it will tag words. It'll tag it with parts of speech, and it also has it will tag names. And it does a pretty good job, not 100%. So you can see, so I could basically pull out things that were names. And that's actually what I'm showing, just for fun on the right. I pulled out the names using Spacey and counted them. And I thought, what are the most common names in these movies? And these aren't actually the most common names in the movies. These are the most common names in the summaries. But you can see they're very Christmassy names, actually. Jack, Nick, like Saint Nick. Chris, and then the women, Lucy, Joy, Maggie. So it's kind of like these are not typical American names, except maybe Jack. In terms of token and name frequency, so I excluded the really, really common ones because they weren't helping, like Christmas. And this is really just counting incidents. And you can get to a sense now of how these plots flow. So you see family, child, help, love, parent occurring quite frequently. Small town and hometown are very important ingredients as well as things around family like sibling and towns. Now it really starts to get interesting here. I looked at bigrams and trigrams. So these are 2-word combos and 3-word combos that happened across multiple stories. And the 2-word combos you can see up there: high school, fall love, return hometown, true meaning, school sweetheart. And in the 3-word I just loved because it was high school sweetheart, old high school, number 1, number 2, first time since, miracle really happened. You can almost write a movie just based on these bigrams and trigrams, I thought, these common 2-word and 3-word combos, which is very interesting. In particular, look at high school sweetheart or old high school. That character, the old high school sweetheart, is a common recurring trope. I knew that, but I've actually demonstrated it here. So then in terms of getting at what types of stories are there, I knew, and I would call this domain knowledge based on having watched a lot of these, I knew that there wasn't just one formula. I knew there were multiple formulas. And I'll give you an example. There's one that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years where a big company will go into a small town and look and acquire or be wanting to acquire a family business. So that's the dynamic. Big company, family business, and then there's kind of drama around how to save the business. I knew that was one. Then there was another one around usually a guy, like a cynical guy, businessman type, would hire someone to help him out with something. Usually it's planning a party or an event. And that's someone who would have a lot of spirit and be spunky, and of course they would fall in love. But this was more like the, part-time job trope, that one. So anyway, I knew there were different story types, but the question here was how many, and what were they? How could I start to separate them? So I did topic modeling. Topic modeling, LDA, is the acronym used. Topic modeling it's a way of modeling a distribution on 2 levels. One is words within a topic. So it associates a certain number of words with a topic area, and then topics in a document. So basically, in this case, I didn't use the bag of words approach. So I didn't like dump all of the summaries into a big corpus like a string. I kept it as a list of strings. So each element in the list was a different story. So this was a way of kind of separating the stories themselves into different documents. And then using LDA, it would look within each document to try to tease out which were the topics that were prevalent in that document. And then for each topic, which were the words associated with the topic. So I thought I could maybe get somewhere. And the question always with this is, how many topics? Because you have to do that as an input. You know, I say 3, 4, 5. So I did a grid search, and we could use coherence as a way to see how well am I doing? How well is this model, whatever the model is demonstrated, predicting combinations of words within a topic? And it seemed to point to 7 or 8 as being optimal using that coherence metric. And these were them. I generated 8 topics. Now what I had to do here, I like the look of this. So you can see the words there. There is repetition as well. So within a topic, you can have similar, or 2 different topics, you can have some similar words. But what I liked about this was that, first of all, there was some intuitive sense being made here. But I knew that I'd had to do a little finagling here. So what I did was I ran the model against the summaries. Then I pulled out the summaries that were clearly within one topic or another. And there's always a mix of topics. It's like a range. So nothing is really just all one topic, usually. But I kind of found the ones that were mostly in one topic, pulled them out, looked at them, and just tried to figure out if I could summarize them. Me as a person, if they looked like they made sense. And these were in bold, you can see my summaries that I made based on the topics that were pulled out. And then this name I gave it was just kind of a rubric. But I sort of like this, actually. These seemed intuitively to make sense. For instance, there's a setback theme where someone who's disappointed in work or love moves back to their small town to help their family, something like that. Then there's the boss one I mentioned before. There's a mix-up. There's a kind of a series of stories where something happened with travel plans, like there's a storm or somebody gets lost, or so they had to change their plans. And usually that forces people together who wouldn't be together. That's like a road movie kind of thing. And then there's another one, I won't go through all of these, but there's another one around an alternative life. So early on, this is if there's a spirit involved, or even Santa actually, someone early on will be unhappy with their life. And so they'll make a wish that things were different, and the wish will be granted. So they're in an alternative life. That's why I call it alt life. And this could often be involving time travel. Those are some pretty cool ones, actually. There was one I liked where a woman who was kind of unhappily married, or thought she was unhappily married, said, "Oh, what would life have been like if I hadn't married this guy?" And so her wish was granted. She went back in time and she realized he wasn't so bad. So I encouraged my wife to watch that one. This is a topic model visualization, so intertopic distance. And these are the topics from the previous page here on the left. And what you want to see in this is an interactive tool, actually. It's Pi LDA Viz. It's pretty cool. You can run it in the notebook. And you want to see good separation, and there is. So these do seem like distinct topics, and except for 1 and 4 where there's some overlap. And there is overlap, by the way, in these topics. For instance, the setback theme often can occur with the mix-up theme and so on. So it's not as cut and dried as I may be hinting. But on the right, you can see the most salient terms. That is for the topic around the one where the big business takes over the family business. And you can see the prevalence of words like family biz, takeover happens, big city, big corp. Those are words associated with that story type. Now, in terms of, how are these different topic themes divided, like how common are they over the entirety of the plot corpus, the plot corpus meaning all the seasons of this show. So in terms of all of the movies that have been shown, what categories do they fall into? And you can see setback is the most common. But what was interesting to me here, because as I said, there's overlap with setback and some of the others, is that they seem fairly even here, like the rival one and the boss, which made me think that at Hallmark, and I don't have any inside info here, at Hallmark, they know about these story types and they actually space them out. So they probably have their own version of this where they're like, we need a takeover story, we need a boss story, and so on. I don't know if that's true, but I don't see why it wouldn't be true. Okay, so that was my analysis, and I said, as I said, I was quite happy with it, even though it wasn't as definitive as I thought. But I did manage to tease out some different types of stories using topic modeling. Now, finally, I'll just quickly go through this because, as you can see, I had mixed results here, but I wanted to generate some text. So I used 3 methods: Markov chains, long short-term memory, which is a kind of recurrent neural network, and then GPT-2. Now, some of you may have heard of GPT-3, which has got a lot of attention, which is eerily good at generating text, and it's not open source, and I couldn't actually get access to it, so I had to use the older version. Markov chains, there's a lot of ways to implement them, but with the Markov chain, what I did, I just took the text again as a corpus and created a dictionary, and basically it would create a probability distribution of what the next word would be in the corpus. Like it's 20% likely to be, well, you can see on the left here. So Christmas or home or town. And I said, what happened next? So with Christmas, Carol was the most likely next word, but then or happened second most likely and Eve happens next most likely. And you get the idea. You do that for every single word. And I generated this text here on the right, which word by word makes sense, but in a long group, it doesn't really make sense at all. But you can see why, looking at the method. But career woman who plans the development of any child, writer's block, novelist is introduced to spend. So you can see in general, like word by word, it makes sense. Longer, it doesn't.
Question, Martin.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you include the stop words like and, for, to, or?
No, it's a great question. I think in the analysis stage, I took out stop words. In the text generation stage, it's quite common to keep things like capitalization, punctuation, and stop words, because what I'm trying to do is generate actual text, like something that looks like the input text. So it's less analytical and more practical, but in a way it's misleading because I don't have capital C's for Christmas and stuff like that. But I purposely kept in the stop words. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And then LSTM, the issue here was it just would take too long to train. It's an extremely computationally expensive process. And you can see it starts out okay. I did 6 epochs, 100 character sequences, and it can do longer sequences. What it does is it builds a model based on a sequence of text and it predicts the next one. So it's more sophisticated than the Markov chain method that I used anyway. And you can see for an elderly widow while struggling to balance his career and family, that seems okay. He has recurring dreams, but then it breaks down into this kind of loop. And I'm not sure why the repetitive loop happens, although apparently it happens a lot in NLG models. It kind of gets caught in a cycle. But I do think the more I train, because I did a 3 epoch thing and it didn't look as good as this. So I think if I had taken time to train more, it would have worked better. My final method, which was a lot of fun, was GPT-2. And I used Hugging Face. They were actually in the news today. They just made a deal with somebody. But they, and PyTorch, and there's a bunch of them out there. They're transformers. So transformers is like the latest thing in text generation, and that's what GPT-3 is. And it's a pre-trained language model. So it's been trained on lots of text from all over the place. Books, I think a lot of books, and just millions and millions of words. And so it becomes pre-trained, but you can steer it with some training data, and that's what I did. So I trained it up on the Christmas data and adapted it to the pre-trained model, and then you put in a prompt, and then it generates some text. Now the text is not perfect, as you can see, but it's more sensical, and it's more sensical because it's a pre-trained model. The one on the second one, but thanks to Christmas spirit, the family of 2 spend most of their day there, have more time in the family for one common cause, their families. Doesn't make sense, but on the other hand, it does have that, it does catch something in the training data, which is the importance of family. And it does sound like English, sort of. So this was interesting. I think this could help. I'll show you in a second. I wrote an article about it, how it could help. And then there are sampling methods you can apply. I just did this example here. There are different ways to decode what the prediction would be. And some of them really did help. Rather than going for, it has a set of words going for the next most likely, you could do a kind of a search decoding where it looked for not the next most likely word, but the next most likely sequence, so you don't miss out on common words that come later. And some of these were, a chance meeting with the new mayor is a handsome and successful businessman, brings the two together. Handsome businessman gives his John to focus on his. It's very handsome, this guy. And finally, yeah, I did get this article out of it for The Drum, which is a advertising trade press publication that I write for. And I wrote about, could you use a robot to write ads, to write ad copy? So I tried to train it. I did the same method on Super Bowl ads. And it came up with some pretty okay ones. But my thought there was it could be used to prompt creatives. You wouldn't use it to write your campaign, but you could use it to come up with ideas. So finally, hopefully I didn't take too much time here, the couple of conclusions. So one is that the movies do have a consistent set of themes. So intuitively, I think that was validated. One thing around the plot and analyzing plot structure is that there is some pre-processing that's required. It's almost like one would have to take, like I did, the summary, and then come up with tokens almost for parts of a plot. So I could see doing, if I were to do it again, things like the meeting or the hometown, child, things that would be like standard naming conventions. And then those could be used and then, in a sequence like time series. And then LDA modeling, NLGA, mixed results with NLG. But, encouraging, I thought. And then that was it. So thank you.
Okay, I want to open the floor for questions. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. Martin, is there any specific reason you want to do this project other than the one you already mentioned?
Well, yeah, for a long time now, I have wanted to look at the structure of plots, movie plots, TV plots, because I do think they're highly structured. And in fact, when I was younger, I studied screenwriting. And I was not a very good screenwriter, but I was very good at analyzing how stories were structured. So I felt it's not that a machine could write a screenplay, but a machine could come up with a plot. I really feel that's true. And so my question was, what is the structure? And that's been very fascinating.
So for people new to screenplay, screenplay writing, what's the concept of a plot?
Well, a plot it consists of the sequence of events that lead to whatever the end of the story is. And it includes two components. One of the players in the plot. So these are usually humans with some agency. And then the things that happen. So those would be the events. And you need both. You also need a setting. But the important thing is the players and then the events. And with these Hallmark movies, I thought there really was a formula. Like someone's in a job, they leave the job, go to the hometown. So that's hero, big city, hometown. That's like a plot element. Then there's meet high school sweetheart. That's another plot element. You know what I mean? But it's like a sequence. Yeah.
I see.
It's not about poetry. It's more about action.
So do you believe Netflix actually did the machine learning to come up with the House of Cards?
House of Cards? Oh, right. Yeah, I did read that they use machine learning. I don't think that's true. I think what they did, I don't know the model they used, but you could do a regression model, for instance, on movie genres and stars and things like length of the movie and the genre they're in and what markets are going to release them in, that kind of thing, to say, well, how do I maximize revenue? And so Netflix did something like that. They're like, if I have this star and this star and it's in this genre, how many viewers am I going to get? So it's not the same as coming up with a story. Then they hired writers who wrote House of Cards.
I see. So you also look into the ads campaign write-up. Do you think it's going to be commonly applied?
For advertising?
Yeah.
Yeah, advertising would be easier because in advertising, you don't need to come up with a whole story. It's just like a tagline and a concept. And I think that a machine could come up with thousands of those pretty easily. And then, the human would sift through it, use it as a prompt and sift through it and say, oh, okay, this is a good idea. This is a bad idea. Most of them are bad ideas.
Have you heard about Google Analytics recently released GA4? They claim they're going to use a lot of machine learning to automate the ads.
Well, there's a lot of machine learning in advertising. Yeah, I was in the ad business. And in fact, I deal with ad tech all the time. And in terms of trying to optimize, which ad to show to who and how to measure it, there's been quite a lot. It's usually some kind of a regression model. But one of the big insights that was applied early on was the use of Bayes' theorem. This was in like 2007 to predict who was or was not likely to click on an ad. So it was actually Bayes' theorem itself was quite revolutionary and was built into a product that was offered by Right Media by a guy who's very, he's a billionaire now. So that was his insight. I thought that was interesting. Naive Bayes, yeah. Which we studied in the boot camp. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We have student working group M, and he shared with us a lot of algorithm trading revolution now. They are building product platform to allow machine learning methodology apply across the board. Every mini second will be optimized.
Yeah. I think it's true. And one thing I'll say, I didn't know about text generation much really before this project, and looking into what GPT-3 can do, and then Google built a different model. It's very impressive. They can generate text that looks quite human. I got a little scared for a minute, but then I realized that over long pieces of text, it doesn't quite hold together. But if you look at it like a half a page, it looks very good. So they're getting smarter.
I recall we had a student who was PhD on music from Stanford. He joined a company, a startup. They actually analyzed the movie shooting and come up with the music.
Oh yeah.
They can tell how intensely the scene about, whether they need scary movie or more like smooth, loving, romantic music. So
yeah, I could, because that would be AI. You'd use image analysis and look at the pace of the cuts and yeah.
Yeah, they also use the screenplay. The screenplay prompt is also very helpful.
Oh.
Cool. Any audience have questions?
Hello, Martin here. I'm Ricardo. I'm a data scientist from a contact center, and I'm really impressed about your talk. Thanks a lot for sharing all your knowledge. I have a question related to one slide that you show. You classified like pretty much everything in 8 topics, right? You said theme was setback, boss, mix up, life takeover, rivals, imposters, and something like that, right? So I would like to do the same thing, right, based on the conversation with the agents, with the consumers. So my question is, this black bold definition of the team, for example, in the setback, you said like disappointment in work, love, woman, moves to small town. This part was made by the algorithm or was made by the human who understand what is the probability of every word to appear on the conversation, and you classify it as such?
I tried to automate it as much as I could. So I mentioned using Spacey. What Spacey did was it took the text and it labeled each part of speech. And NLTK has one as well. But I could, using that method, which is a pipeline, I could tag each of the names as a name. And then it also tagged like cities as being a city.
So this reporting.
Can you hear that guy? Cool. Oh, sorry, there's a little feedback. But anyway, yeah, so a tag with a part of speech. And then I could automate that. So I basically turned a person's name into a token that said name. That can be automated. Some of it wasn't, like an example would be like there were some dictionary things I had to do, like synonyms, essentially. So there was a corporation or company or conglomerate. Those words would appear in the summaries, but I wanted them all to point to the same thing, which is big corporation. So I created some dictionaries, and there was some manual work there. There's probably a way to automate synonym lookup as well. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. A lot of it could be automated, though, I'm sure. Oh, and then genderization. I didn't mention that. So I pulled out the names and then genderized them, male, female. And that's not 100% either. You kind of have to check.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Vivian, for inviting me. I appreciate it. Tomorrow's my day I graduate.
Oh, congratulations.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, yeah.
Martin, you're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the office will be reopened soon and you can get your alumni t-shirt.
I hope so. I look forward to that day.
Have a few minutes. Would you like to share what are the other projects you've done? Do you have a blog post page or anything we can check up? Your GitHub, your blog post?
I do. Yes, indeed. I have one that I did I'm a CrossFitter, you know. It's a kind of exercise. Okay, and so I did one on
share screen to show people your blog post.
Yeah, I can show you. Let me see here. It was my Shiny app. So our Shiny, we do an our Shiny app for I don't know if I can. I mean,
Shiny was your first or second project?
Shiny was my first one, okay. And yeah, I have the Prezzo. Anyway, what I did was I looked at data for athletes, and I wanted to do a benchmarking kind of project. And so you can see, I have a blog post on the New York Data Science Academy.
Martin, you can share screen so everyone can look at what you're looking at and go to your blog post.
Let me do that.
Good. So if you're new to this community, we have blog post website. We have over 2,000 pieces of student work shared there. You can find their students linking, you can find their GitHub, you can find their Shiny app IO. So if you look for collaboration, project help, anything, or even just learning, you can go there.
Okay, so let me just take a moment here and share my screen. So our Shiny, I guess maybe some of you aren't aware of what it does, but it is it's based on R, and it's a way of building dashboards, interactive dashboards that can be.
So what's the response time per se, the baseline you said?
Pardon me?
Okay.
Muko, can you ask your question one more time? Muko, can you hear us well? Somehow when you ask a question, the voice wasn't very clear. Yes, go ahead. Would you mind asking the question one more time?
Was this part of the strategy? I was not aware of the performance testing is.
About last
project? No, I know,
but
I'm saying, no, I know that, but I'm saying the way it is to be performed, we need to check.
Okay.
So if that was the question, right?
Yeah, I think we'll have to mute him. Anyway, yeah, so I'll show you this quickly. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can
This is,
see.
so this is a Shiny app here, and it was a CrossFit Athlete Analyzer. So there was a lot of data around CrossFit athletes, and I just wanted to create one where I could benchmark performance for different athletes, male or female, by age. And you can see the benchmark graphs on the right. This shows for among good athletes, what were their scores? And then you could change the rank here. So to look at the top ranking athletes. And so you can see the time that they take to do these particular workouts goes down because they're better athletes. And then finally, this one here, there was a survey done for a lot of athletes. And so I just visualized here their answers. And winners would be people who scored better. So I'll just move the slider here. And I'll do it for me. So I'm over 35 here. My BMI, I'm not sure what it is. Let's say here. That's body mass index. So I could benchmark and I could say, all right, for the eating survey, the best athletes answered were more likely to say, I eat quality foods, but I don't measure. And less likely to say something like, I eat whatever's convenient. So, that makes sense. they don't eat donuts. But yeah, there's more to it than that. But there's a lot of dimensions here, like training. How often do they train? What's their experience? And the nice thing about this R Shiny, the app, this is a front end, but on the back is R. So you could, anything you can write in R, you could have displayed in here. So I did, it was basically, this is just this is a regression line here, this line. And then the plot is an R plot, ggplot. And then these are also just, basic box plots done in R as well. So it's nice. Python doesn't have, they have something called Plotly, which I also played with, which was like a dashboard for Python, but it's not quite as good, actually. It doesn't look as good. It's not as easy. It's much harder to use. Yeah.
So one reason which R and Python both in the bootcamp is my experience, a lot of new methods first available in R, especially machine learning method. Then Python community adapt shortly.
Yeah, I had experience of Python before the bootcamp. I had not had experience with R, and I was very impressed. I was afraid of R, but I actually liked it a lot. I preferred it in a way. It's very logical and clean, and the issue is that Python has so many more people supporting it, and writing extensions and libraries, and there's so much activity around Python that it can, just anything you want to do, pretty much you can do with Python. But R it's much kind of cleaner. I think that was my experience as a beginner with it. And the plotting is great. So I think statisticians, if it's like standalone data analysis, people would still use R for that quite frequently.
Okay, Martin, what did you do for a web scraping project?
Oh, I did I scraped movie plots, actually. There's a site called themoviespoiler.com, and the movie spoiler has long summaries of movies, and the thing that they do is give away the ending. That's why it's called spoiler. So I always enjoy reading that. If I don't want to go to the movie, I just can read the summary. And so I scraped lots of movies, thousands from there, and I just did the beginnings of this kind of analysis that I showed today.
So actually it support your final capstone project.
It did. Yeah, it was more text.
Your own data set.
Yeah, I built on it. Yeah.
I see. That's cool. What package did you use to scrape?
I used Scrapey. Yeah.
Do you need to auto click through different pages? Do you need to log into a certain account?
No, it was a simple site in the sense that it was built on a WordPress. It was almost like a blog. I think it was probably started as a blog. So it was a messy site, but it was just pages, so I could use Scrapey. I didn't have to use Selenium. I know sometimes when sites get very complex, you have to do that.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your whole experience, and congratulations on your graduation tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me.
Okay. If there are no other questions, we're gonna wrap up the session, and you can find Martin through his LinkedIn link, and he's the invited speaker for today's event. Feel free to reach out to him for collaboration or any interesting thoughts sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Hope you have fun. And we're going to distribute the video and the slides deck through our newsletter. So if you go to nycdesign.com and scroll down to the end of the front page, there is a sign up for newsletter.
Thanks, Martin.
Martin, did you get our newsletter today?
I'm not yet. I haven't looked though. Maybe.
We did a last minute email blast of today's event.
Oh, great.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your day.